Led by their indomitable king, Greymane, Gilneas once stood with the Alliance against the vile, orcish horde that sought to conquer all of Lordaeron. Gilneas survived, but in the chaotic years following the Second War, the mighty kingdom drew ever inward. Distrustful of their former allies, the Gilneans erected a mighty wall at the borders of their land, closing off their nation and their hearts from an ever-darkening world. Now, many years later, as the seemingly unstoppable undead scourge marches across Lordaeron, human civilization once again teeters on the brink. As war and terror close in all around them, the citizens of Gilneas are faced with one terrible truth. Their mighty wall cannot hold back the dead for much longer. And worse, rumors of a new threat have arisen within the kingdom's borders, of feral nightmare creatures that walk upright as men, but hunt and howl as wolves.
Hi everybody, it's Az here from HeelvsBabyface. So yesterday I brought you a Memoirs of a Warlock, where I go to special places to myself, something which has, or I feel, a connection to, that touched me emotionally within the game and made me feel almost akin to it. Now, when I did yesterday's video, which was Gilneas, I was actually quite surprised at the reaction to it. I thought it was most likely going to be something that I personally felt, and other people, although they might watch the video, may not have connected to it and gone, yeah, you know, decent place, it was okay. So I was really surprised by the fact that so many people kind of felt the same way that I did about this area. And one of the comments which was quite frequent was, "Oh, it's making me want to roll a Worgen." And I thought, why not bring that to you? Why not experience it all together over again? And I haven't rolled a Worgen character for some considerable time now, and I haven't done the starting quest for a Worgen for a long time. So I thought this was the perfect opportunity to go through the earlier stages of this, to relate to what was going on and understand a bit more of this story and the lore and the connection that I had to this place. So if you want to come along on this journey with me, then by all means do. Now, it starts off pretty much just like any other zone. This is a starting zone, so one thing that it has to take into consideration is brand new players to the World of Warcraft could have started here. People that have no understanding about the game whatsoever and are coming in fresh from scratch, and yeah, very yellow, shall we say. Very green, even. Yellow? Yellow's cowardly, isn't it? No, not so much yellow. Green. And so, yeah, you get a very generic kind of a start. But still, it didn't stop it from being rather fun. I mean, going around this opening plaza area, yeah, we're engaging in some combat with the Worgen. The Worgen, of course, here are yellow, which means they're neutral, so they won't attack us unless we attack them. That's exactly what you need as a brand new player. The first thing that you don't want when you start a video game is to have everything jump on top of you without quite understanding what's going on. But also, you had a couple of interesting other aspects to it. Yep, you're going around picking up some stuff for some crates. There's nothing too untoward about that. But it's the knocking on the doors. And I know this seems like such a small thing, but to me, it really kind of gave a sense of immersion. When you were knocking on a door, and that door physically opened, and a resident of Gilneas ran out in an attempt to get to safety, I loved that. And one of the reasons why I love that so much is because it gave Gilneas life from the very start. It gave it a sense of identity. One thing that we're, I think, very used to in, and I'm talking all MMO RPGs here. I'm not trying to tarnish the World of Warcraft just with this brush. But one thing is, when you're in a major capital city, whether it be Elder Scrolls, whether it be World of Warcraft, SWOTOR, etc., etc., most areas are there for show. And most areas have doors and buildings and whatnot, but they're not accessible. that, you know, you can try and go up to the front door, but it'll just be built into the game. So there's no way that you could open it, go inside, and explore what buildings are there. So just the very fact that you were knocking on doors, having it open, seeing a small segment of that building, of that house, gave it life. Gave it some sort of breath. And I really appreciate those nuances. It's nuances like that which put a smile on my face. So when we've dealt with the plaza, we get a little bit of learning about your character. So in this case, I've rolled a warrior, and you have to utilise your charge ability. So it wouldn't really matter what class you roll there. You'd be learning how to play. And again, because this is a starting area, an area that you would start at level 1, brand new players to the game would appreciate something like that. They wouldn't understand what abilities are thrown at them. You know, we take it for granted that we understand these, even in classes to which we haven't played. So if I was to roll a chamois for the very first time, and it's a class which I barely touch, I would still have a heavy understanding of what was going on and how to kind of put abilities with each other. Oh, can we get like a transmog for that, Blizzard, please? Gilneas Guard transmog? Oh, I'd absolutely love to see that. So yeah, you'd still be able to chain together abilities, and you shouldn't have too much difficulty understanding what's going on. But brand new players to the game, fresh into the World of Warcraft, no, they wouldn't, and they would like something like that. And another thing, just before people start saying, where are your heirlooms? Why aren't you putting heirlooms on and getting more and more experience? This blast from the past video, it's got nothing to do with leveling up quickly. It's me just trying to experience these areas as they were, or as close to, without getting invisible wall down back alleyways, or as close to as they were provided to us in the past. And I know in Cataclysm you could have heirlooms, but no, it's not about that. And even getting a little bit lost now and just trying to see if I can make my way around the back streets, there is just such a beauty about Gilneas, which I was talking about. Look at these ridiculously high curbs that make you have to jump onto the pavement, or the sidewalk if you're American, around the place. It's just so cleverly done, and the cobbled streets, and even here with the upturned cart and the dead bodies inside. I mean, are those people who have been bitten and killed by the Worgen? You'd imagine so. There is just such a tragedy which surrounds this whole city. There's just this awful storyline, and I say awful, I mean it's a great storyline to play, but awful for the people involved. I mean, many of you who haven't played a Worgen before might not have cottoned on to something here, and might not have understood that when you begin the Worgen storyline, you actually start as human. You don't start as a Worgen. This is something which happens throughout the duration of this story, and this is what kind of turns, you know, something which in itself is a tragedy even more tragic, almost Shakespearean, the level of tragedy which goes on here. You are this human, whether it be male, female, warlock, warrior, and you are trying desperately to defend your city, Gilneas, from this outside threat, from something which you never thought you would have to defend yourself against. This wall was erected to keep everybody out. The undead, the scourge, even the alliance when they started to get mistrustful of their allies. This was an attempt to almost make this Gilneas state xenophobic. You know, it's the only way that I could really use to describe it. It was somewhere that they just wanted to isolate themselves from the outside world. So to have this Worgen threat suddenly come in, and I'll just move the footage on so we don't have to wait for 2 minutes here. But the fact that, yeah, they didn't think they'd have to deal with any threats. They thought they were safe behind these walls. They're suddenly experiencing a threat of unimaginable terror, because one thing which they are beginning to understand is when a Worgen bites, then things happen to that person that got bit. It has that kind of vampiric. I don't know, it's werewolfy as well, but it's kind of got that vampiric / werewolf ethos that surrounds it. And one of the ways that I described Greymane Manor in yesterday's Memoirs of a Warlock was the fact that it kind of feels as if it came almost directly out of a Hammer horror movie, a Dracula movie, or something like of that kind of ilk. So yeah, so once more, it all fits together rather nicely indeed. But this, to me, where we're getting to right now, is where the storyline kind of kicks into overdrive. And I mean it from a questing standpoint here, because I have to stress this once more, because this is a starting zone, because this is an area where brand new, fresh players could be introduced to the world of Warcraft, to kind of have the mechanics which are coming up very shortly is excellent. And just talking about what I was talking about being bit, there we go. This is the moment in time where your character, and you can now see a physical debuff on them, has been bit by an infected Worgen. So you're not thinking too much of it at the moment. You're thinking, ouch, you know, the guy bit me, what a twat. But you're not kind of understanding right now, and a lot of people in Gilneas aren't. This is the realization which comes very shortly, that when you are bit, you become infected, and you are now destined to turn into this creature. You're now destined to turn into this monster which is destroying your city. This monster which is invading your home and causing this panic and terror across these beautiful cobbled and stone streets. So if you try and get into the mentality of that, if you try and empathize with these people, it's horrific. Absolutely horrific. It's horrors and tragedy just coming from so many different angles. It's as if it's inevitable. It's as if they are absolutely powerless to stop what is going on at the moment. And I'm going to use another kind of example here. I'm almost thinking this area akin to what's happening in Fear the Walking Dead, this 6-part miniseries, which is starting the Walking Dead franchise from when the infection started. It kind of has that feel. There is such an ignorance of what's legitimately happening, and an ignorance of safety by just putting yourself into certain situations, like quarantine a certain segment block or a suburban area away from the infection. You think, yeah, everything's absolutely fine. But they themselves don't understand, of course, that when people die, doesn't matter how they die, as long as they haven't been shot in the head and had the brain severed, they are going to turn into a zombie as well, or a biter, or a walker, or whatever they want to call them in this series. Whereas this is the exact same ignorance which is being displayed in Gilneas right now. They are having people bit by the Worgens, but they're fighting on, and they're tending to them, and they're keeping them in their houses and hospitals, and they're not understanding that these people will turn, and these people will bite more, and more people will become infected by the Worgen. It's a terrible, horrible situation, such a tragic. I know I'm saying the word tragedy so many times, but it's the only kind of analogy, descriptive word, adjective that you can use for this whole area. So, once more, just scooch the footage on a wee bit. We don't have to see me run down the street so many times. But this is where things go absolutely crazy. And this is where they get crazy in a really good way. And the reason why I wanted to bring that that Living Dead, that zombie analogy to you, is because this is where it really feels that way. These don't so much, to me anyway, feel like Worgen or werewolves right now. This feels like a plague of zombies. This feels like the concentration of the Worgen in this area, and the fact that they're just kind of like staying there. I know that they can't make them too mobile in a game like this, but the very fact that they're just kind of like standing around and the density of the numbers, it does have that George R. Romeo-esque vibe to it. That, you know, shopping mall with all the zombies outside of it, Night of the Living Dead, etc. You know, farmhouse. You pick whichever movie franchise, you pick whichever film. It kind of has that feel to it. And especially the way that whenever you get physically near to them, then they start running after you. You know, you hurt them, you hit them, the fire on them, they start charging after you. It has that apocalyptic kind of vibe, the end of days of you know, Gilneas, so to speak, which is absolutely true, because these are the end times for this city. This is it. It's, you're being pushed from district to district and now back to the huge cathedral, this imposing cathedral, where the spire can be seen from almost anywhere in Gilneas. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you haven't got something like a mountain blocking your view, you will see this spire touching the sky, piercing the heavens itself. And then we kind of come to the climax. This is where all the storyline, all the fighting, all the resistance that you've put up against the Worgen come tumbling down. And the reason why it all comes tumbling down very shortly indeed is, first of all, the story has built up so cleverly. Because we started off in that very small plaza, and then we moved to, you know, the military district, and then we moved to that district. And so we've gone through the various districts of the city, and then, of course, what was the most imposing building within Gilneas? What was the largest building? What's the building that I've just been describing as being seen from almost anywhere? It's the cathedral. It is a crescendo. This storyline has very cleverly built up to a crescendo, not only through storytelling, but physicality. You've gone from smaller areas to slightly larger areas to more open areas to the biggest area of Gilneas. It's almost like sex, and it's just build up to that climactic kind of feel. And the reason why I use sex, and I don't use it as a dirty example, the reason why I say that is because with sex, you know, the deeper you get into it, the harder you get into it, the more the heart pumps, you know, etc. And it kind of has that feel to it. That's why you have so many horrors that have sexual relationships and sexual kind of connotations attached to it, because of the way that it happens. And then this is it. This is it, where you yourself have turned into a Worgen, and you have turned and destroyed your allies. So this is where I'm going to leave Blast from the Past. And if you've enjoyed this video and you want to see more about the starting area for the Worgen, I'm more than happy to do so. And in actual fact, if you enjoyed what happened here, I'm also looking at potentially doing Memoirs of a Warlock, which will link into a Blast from the Past video. But I hope you enjoyed the vid. And if you did, do give a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media and Twitch for live streaming. Those links are in the description down below, and I'll be back with some more stuff very soon. I'm going to leave you with the final bits of footage from the Worgen turning. You take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
They've kept you alive because they still believe you can be saved. To which I must ask, is there even a shred of humanity left within you? Perhaps we will find out soon enough.